Hey Commanders fans, get ready to dive deep into one of the hottest storylines this offseason, the running back room. Yes, that crucial position, for me at least, that's fundamental to our offense's success, especially with a dynamic quarterback like Jaden Daniels. There's some serious buzz, inside information pointing towards potential chaos, or let's say a major shakeup, depending on one player in particular. If you want to know who that is and what could happen with our running backs, stick around until the end, because today's discussion promises to be electrifying and full of surprises. Don't forget to like the video. It's just a click, and it helps a lot. One of the most intriguing storylines for Washington Commanders fans to follow closely during the offseason activities and training camp is the competition and dynamics in the running back room. We received inside information suggesting a significant overhaul in this group could be on the horizon, potentially tied to the performance of a relatively unknown rookie, a 7th-round pick from the last draft, Jackery Crosky-Merritt. It's a name that may not be familiar to everyone yet, but it could be making headlines soon. Of course, there's a long way to go, with plenty of practice and hard work during OTAs and training camp before any drastic scenario unfolds. But I confess, there's a growing feeling among attentive fans, and some analysts, that the Commanders might have found a real steal with the 245th overall pick in the 2025 draft. Jackery Crosky-Merritt possesses intriguing characteristics that could make a difference on our roster. Crosky-Merritt himself has made it clear he didn't come to Washington just to fill a practice squad spot. He wants to impact the running back rotation from year one. He's already showcased his potential and made a positive impression during rookie minicamp. However, the real test and challenge will be shining and standing out when competing directly against established veterans who know the league and the system. The competition in the running back room is intense, and the confidence of the players already here is high. Brian Robinson Jr., who has been our lead back, and other players on the roster aren't going to easily relinquish their spots on the depth chart. Jackery Crosky-Merritt is starting from the bottom, as is natural for a 7th-round pick, but reportedly has more going for him than most players selected that late in the draft. And this is where things get interesting, fans. Inside information from within the Commanders organization indicates that, depending on how things unfold in the coming weeks and months, major changes could be coming to the running back room dynamic. This isn't just a rumor, it's something being discussed internally and could have a real impact on the final roster composition for the season. Ben Standig of The Athletic, a journalist who closely follows the Commanders and usually has good sources, detailed this situation. He spoke with a source within the team who believes Jackery Crosky-Merritt has a real chance of not only making the roster, but also making an impact that could trigger these changes. The source made it clear that nothing is guaranteed, but the possibility exists. And even more surprisingly, he openly discussed the possibility of Brian Robinson Jr. being cut, and the team seeking external reinforcements as viable scenarios that could emerge depending on the current player's performance. Ben Standig stated that Jackery Crosky-Merritt isn't a roster lock, much less a guaranteed contributor to the rotation, but the 6'0", 207-pound player has what it takes to get there, despite missing almost the entire 2024 college season due to eligibility issues. This shows how much his potential is seen as real within the organization. As you can see, there are many moving parts, and a lot at stake in the running back room. The Commanders will closely observe all options currently on the roster, including giving Jackery Crosky-Merritt a fair chance to prove his worth. If the coaching staff and front office aren't fully convinced by what they see from the current players during summer workouts, they'll be looking at the veteran market and analyzing any notable players who might be cut by other teams and better fit their needs. It would be a considerable surprise if Brian Robinson Jr., who is in a contract year, wasn't the leading rusher to start the season. He's proven to be a physical and reliable runner. Austin Eckler, who arrived this offseason, has undeniable utility, especially as a dangerous receiving threat out of the backfield, complementing the passing game with Jaden Daniels. For Jackery Crosky-Merritt, the most realistic initial goal should be to solidify himself as the third option in the running back rotation. Achieving this would provide the necessary platform to catch the coaching staff's eye, showcase his talent in practice, and perhaps gradually increase his influence on the offense and playing time should the opportunity arise, and the team need him at some point during the season. It's a difficult path, but entirely possible. The Commanders under this new management have made it clear they will increase competition at all positions, and the running back room is a perfect example. They will reward players who prove their worth in practice and show they deserve to be on the field. This meritocratic mentality won't be lost on Jackery Crosky-Merritt, who, like many 7th-round picks, aims to prove the league wrong for letting him fall so far in the draft, making everyone pay for their lack of conviction in his talent. Time, as always, will tell what really happens. But it's a running back room dynamic that could change at any moment, depending on players' performance in practice and the preseason. Stay tuned because this storyline promises to be one of the most followed and discussed among Commanders fans in the coming weeks. And as a fan, I'm super curious to see who will stand out and how this whole situation will resolve itself. Now, let's talk about a guy who's a fundamental piece of our team, but is entering a season that promises to be a watershed moment for him. Daron Payne. Our defensive tackle faces a huge challenge, and his performance in 2025 could change a lot, both for him and the future of our defense. If you want to understand why this year is so decisive for Payne and what it means for our chances, stay tuned because today's conversation is serious and directly impacts our team. Suddenly, Payne finds himself with immense responsibility on his shoulders. With the changes the Washington Commanders made this offseason and the full-speed preparation for training camp, the focus on some players is even greater. For me, as a fan, this is clearly a crucial year for our former first-round draft pick. It's the season where he needs to show what he's made of and justify the heavy investment the franchise made in him. Payne is entering the third year of a 4-year, $90 million contract. He signed this deal after a spectacular 2022 season. That year, he simply flew under the radar, recording 11.5 sacks and 64 total tackles, both career highs. It was a Pro Bowl performance that made us believe we had a monster on the defensive line for many years to come. However, since that magical 2022 season, Payne's production has dropped. To be honest, he hasn't been the same player we saw that year. The numbers don't lie, and the dominant presence he showed on the field has diminished somewhat. And the truth is, the Commanders can't afford to see this decline in performance continue in 2025. We need the best Daron Payne possible. Ben Standig of The Athletic has already touched on this point and highlighted the urgency of Payne's situation this season. He mentioned the implications it could have on his contract. It's simple. Payne is at a crossroads. Either he falters and risks becoming an obvious cut target next offseason, freeing up salary cap space, or he plays at the level we know he can, putting himself in a position to, perhaps, receive another good contract in the future, whether here or elsewhere. Even when not at his peak, Payne is still a strong defensive lineman, the kind who demands double teams from opponents. This alone helps open space for other players. However, even considering the coaching change and the potential adjustment in role last year, our 320-pound giant rarely had that impactful presence in games. That feeling that he was dominating the trenches, like we saw in 2022. For me, what he does this season isn't just important for his future, it's fundamental for the team. If he returns to his 2022 level, he'll not only help elevate our defensive line, which has potential but still needs to prove a lot, but he'll also ensure he remains a valuable asset in the league. He would enter his age 29 season with the leverage to seek a significant new contract. Otherwise, as Standig pointed out, he would be a clear salary cap casualty next offseason, limiting Washington's ability to improve the defense in 2025. Looking at the bigger picture, we know Coach Dan Quinn needs to make our defense a force next season. His first year brought some significant changes, and it's natural that there's an adjustment period for players to get used to the new scheme. But the Commanders are on a growth trajectory, striving to become a truly competitive team. And any dead weight, any player not delivering as expected, needs to be identified and, if necessary, replaced to avoid hindering this progress. The franchise invested heavily to support Jaden Daniels, building a promising strong offensive line and bringing in talented receivers and running backs. Now, the defense, Dan Quinn's specialty, also needs to take control of games. We need to see that dominant defense Quinn knows how to build. And, in my opinion as a fan, that starts with the performance of our key defensive players, and Daron Payne is one of them. As Ben Standig observed, at his best, Daron Payne is a game wrecker, a guy who justifies every penny of that $90 million contract. The problem is, we simply haven't seen much of that game wrecker lately. We need him to rediscover that form in 2025. It's his season to prove he's still an elite player and deserves his status. This situation changes in 2025 and Daron Payne returns to dominating the trenches. He'll not only be in a much better position to secure his financial future in the coming years, but more importantly for us fans, the Washington Commanders will become a much stronger contender in the NFL. A solid defense with a peak Payne, combined with our offense's potential, could take us very far. That's why all fans' eyes will be on him this season. To conclude, with all this pressure and expectation on Daron Payne, the big question that remains and that only time will answer is, will this decisive year mark Payne's triumphant return to his peak, solidifying him as a pillar of our defense for years to come, or will the 2025 season be his end in Washington, paving the way for a reshaping of our defensive line? Payne's future and part of our defense's future is at stake right now.